Before going over today's manga, I want to talk a little bit about Shonen Jump Alpha.
For those not aware of it, Shonen Jump Alpha is an online digital manga service provided by licensing company Viz Media, which had previously distributed the American Shonen Jump magazine. For an annual fee, a subscription to Shonen Jump Alpha will allow you to read weekly installments of all the manga offered by the service.
The big selling point of Alpha is just how quickly everything is made available to subscribers. Everything is translated and made available on the site just 2 weeks after it's first published in Japan.
Originally, Shonen Jump Alpha only offered 6 well-established weekly Shonen Jump titles, but recently that's changed. Subscribers now also get a Rurouni Kenshin reboot, as well as a brand new series called Barrage. Barrage debuted in Alpha pretty much immediately after debuting in Weekly Shonen Jump, meaning the American readers will be able to read it from the beginning at almost the exact same time as Japanese readers.
This is really unprecedented for a new, unproven series to be translated and made available by an official licensor so quickly after its first release. It really highlights the potential advantage of using digital media in the manga industry. In fact, it's something that I've been hoping would happen since I first heard about Shonen Jump Alpha.
And keep in mind, this series isn't by a very famous author either. Horikoshi Kohei's only previous series is Omakadoki Zoo, which ran for 5 volumes in Jump and hasn't seen any English release. It's entirely possible that a couple of months down the line, Barrage will be cancelled and Viz will be looking for another series to replace it.
But for the present, this is a sign that Viz is willing to experiment at least a little bit to try and find a new manga series to get American readers hooked on. And for once, an American audience will be able to follow a manga series from the beginning before it has a chance to even prove itself, and see where it goes.
Okay, but how does the manga itself hold up? Much as I want Viz to get a good response from putting this series out there, I'm not going to try and fool myself into thinking it's good if it really isn't. Well, considering that Barrage is barely a month old, it's a little difficult to determine if it's going to be good or not just yet, but so far things are looking pretty bright for it. The series is basically a sci-fi fantasy adventure, focusing on the exploits of the protagonist Astro. No, not that Astro. That'd be stupid. Astro is a teenage orphan who lives in the slums of the war-torn planet of Industria. He works various menial jobs to try to scrape together enough money to take care of not only himself, but also a good-sized group of orphans that he's taken in. His fortunes change one day when he's confronted by Barrage, who... well, actually this says his name is Bulge.
Okay, one thing I need to address very quickly regarding the title of the series, because it's gotten a lot of comments in the past whenever I've mentioned it by name. The series was not originally titled Barrage when the English-speaking manga community first heard about it.
See, the full Japanese title of the manga is Sensei no Barrage. Barrage is the name of the prince, and it doesn't have a direct translation into English, it's just a Japanese approximation of a Western-sounding name. Hence, unofficial translators started calling the manga Sensei no Bulge, which has prompted a chorus of snickers every time I've mentioned it.
It's great to be reassured that everyone still thinks penis jokes are just as funny as they were in 5th grade.
Viz decided to translate Barrage as Barrage, which fits the theme of the series better, and on top of that just sounds cooler. Also, something that I find to be more interesting, the sensei part of the title is actually not written the way you'd expect it to be, like if you're talking about a teacher or a master. Instead, it combines 2 syllables from the words senshi, meaning fighter, and ryusei, meaning shooting star. Putting these words together, you get sensei with the intended written meaning of battlestar.
So instead of calling to mind a teacher's Woody, the full title of the series would be Barrage of the Battlestar! Frickin' badass.
So Astro is confronted by Prince Barrage of the Battlestar, who is the heir to the monarchy that governs over all of Industria. Barrage has no interest in overseeing the world's problems, and he wants to give up his royalty and live the life of a hedonist, and he wants Astro to take his place so that nobody will come after him.
It's interesting when people try the Nigerian prince scam in person, isn't it?
Before Astro can get over the confusion from meeting someone who looks exactly like him and is talking about all this stuff way beyond his understanding, Barrage takes out a golden bracelet called the Org, which he says will serve as proof of his identity.
And now he's trying to pawn off jewelry. This whole thing would seem very shady if it weren't so... silly.
So Barrage slaps the Org on Astro's wrist, and just as he celebrates his freedom from all his obligations, he's shot in the head. Well, at least he died happy. As it turns out, in a wonderful bit of irony, the palace guard sent to find Barrage mistook him for a peasant that was endangering Astro, whom they think to be Barrage, disguised as a peasant, since, after all, he's wearing the Org. Astro is taken to the palace where he's scolded by the leader of the police squad, Tiamat. No, not that Tiamat. That'd be awesome. Shortly afterward, an alien aristocrat arrives at the palace to demand that he be given the Org. Tiamat goes out to confront him, and tensions begin to rise, up until Astro overhears the alien talking smack about Barrage, specifically about how he's nothing but a useless burden on the royal family. Astro, who grew up without a family and holds its value above all else, deems these words unforgivable and rushes outside to confront the aristocrat. When he arrives, the orc suddenly summons a trident of pure energy, destroying the aristocrat's weapon and sending him running with his tail between his legs. We learn that the orc possesses tremendous power, enough to unite the entire war-torn planet, but only those fit to rule may call upon this power. And so Astro must now take up the task that Barrage discarded, and become the next Prince of Industria.
Now at this point, everyone still thinks that Astro is really Barrage, and I thought that he would keep that secret for a long time, dozens of chapters should the series last that long, because it's an easy way to introduce conflict in a shonen or shoujo manga. Clearly I am not psychic.
In the very next chapter, Astro is overcome by guilt over his involvement in Barrage's death, and so he confesses everything that happened. Although the king mourns the loss of his son, he and Tiamat by now understand what type of person Astro is, and they don't bear a grudge against him. I can't do the sequence justice by simply talking about it, even though the conversation they have is pretty simple, but the king's words essentially boil down to, "Look, we kind of already suspected you weren't the prince, but that's because he was such an asshole, and you do things like respect others' feelings, put other people's safety before your own, and generally not act like a selfish dick. I'll miss Barrage because he was my son, but the org deemed you worthy to wield it, and I can see why. You're fit to become king one day. I want you to become my heir, and since you look and sound just like my son, people will believe you're the prince." So because most of the important characters in the manga are in on this valuable secret, there should be fewer pointless shenanigans revolving around keeping it. Although I guess that remains to be seen. Astro agrees to become the new prince on the condition that his adopted siblings are taken into the palace, and shortly afterward he leaves on a journey with Tiamat to bring peace to the world. At the time I'm making this video, Barrage is only a few chapters into this journey, so there's not a lot to talk about. However, I can say that so far this has been a fun manga to read. Astro immediately makes a good impression, and his motivations are clear and consistent. He's got the typical problem of being a shonen protagonist with rocks for brains, and he's ignorant to many of the ways of the world, but hey, he's a street urchin with no formal education, so that makes sense. Even though he's headstrong and lacks tact, I actually find it believable that he just sort of has the natural charisma of a born leader, and that's kind of the point. He has the potential for greatness, but he needs a lot of refining. That's where Tiamat comes in, serving as Astro's mentor. Tiamat is an experienced warrior, knowledgeable of all aspects of the royal court, and a disciplinarian. Basically, he acts as strict and wound up as you would expect one to be if they were tasked with preparing someone to rule an entire planet. We still know very little about him outside of that, and his and Astro's relationship is still only in the beginning stages. And that's really all I have to say about the series for now. I mean, it's not even 2 months old. There's only so much I can discuss with that amount of content. I like Barrage. I believe that it's got great potential, and I want it to have the chance to live up to that potential. Manga is a fickle medium, and a bunch of Jump series don't even make it to 20 chapters. I feel that Barrage is off to a great start with a likable protagonist, good artwork, and an interesting setting full of possibilities. Will it be the next One Piece or Toriko? Maybe. Though on the other hand, like I said, it might not even make it to 20 chapters. But if you're curious, check it out and we'll see where it goes together. So that's going to do it for Barrage, at least for now. If you're interested, check it out on Shonen Jump Alpha, and until next time, forget what they taught you in school, always read right to left.